Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a girl whose heart was kind and beautiful. But her mother died when she was young, and her father married another woman with 2 daughters, not knowing that they all had evil, selfish hearts. Sadly, her father died as well, and her cruel stepmother made her a slave in her own house. "Cinderella, you may not sit with us anymore."
Yeah, go clean up the house. Oops, looks like a messy table. Hurry and clean it up, serving girl.
The girl's evil stepmother always let her daughters shop and have fun, but made her do all the dirty housework like a slave. Her cruel stepmother and selfish stepsisters mocked her name. When she was tired, she would sit by the fireplace cinders to stay warm, and they would call her Cinderella. One fine morning, they received an invitation from the palace.
In honor of the prince, a grand ball shall be held in the royal palace. Every girl eligible for marriage is invited.
Cinderella's stepmother forced her to help prepare her stepsisters for the ball with all the nicest clothes and jewelry. "Now, girls, you must try to win the heart of the prince so he will marry you."
Well, why can't I come? All the girls eligible for marriage are invited.
"Really? Is this the outfit you're going to wear to the ball?" When the day for the ball had arrived, Cinderella was left alone at home. She was very sad because of her cruel stepmother and selfish sisters. And just then, a bright light appeared in the fireplace, and the light changed into a beautiful fairy. And Cinderella was very surprised because the fairy was her mother.
Mother?
"Hello, my darling. You, too, will go to the ball at the palace."
Really? But how?
"With my help, darling. Just gather up your kitty cat, 7 little mice, and the biggest pumpkin you can find from the garden." With a wave of her wand, the fairy transformed the pumpkin into a beautiful horse carriage. She then turned her magic wand to the mice. One of the mice became the driver, and the other 6 turned into beautiful white horses. Now it's your turn.
I look like a princess. But Mother, I do not know how to dance. What if the prince asks me to?
Don't worry, Cinderella. Take these magic slippers, which will make you the best dancer at the ball. Go and dance with the prince. But the magic will only last until midnight, my dear. So you must leave the ball before the clock strikes 12 midnight.
Yes, thank you so much, Mother. I will come before midnight, I promise. Mother, will I be able to see you again?
I'm always by your side. As Cinderella entered the palace with elegant dress and beautiful heart, all heads turned towards her. Even her stepsisters could not recognize her. But the prince noticed her immediately, and his parents, the king and queen, were also impressed with her and liked her immediately.
Now that's what I call a princess.
The handsome prince asked Cinderella to dance. Her magic slippers made the dancing so easy, like she was floating on air. The stepmother and her daughters were shocked by her beauty and were angry with jealousy, wanting the prince for themselves. Cinderella was so happy that she didn't notice how fast the time had passed and forgot that the magic would end at midnight. Then she noticed a clock in the royal ballroom, and she remembered. It was almost midnight, so she ran away from the prince and ran down the stairs to her carriage. But as she ran, her magic slipper slipped off her foot. Cinderella did not have enough time to turn around and get it. The prince ran after Cinderella, but could not catch her. He found her magic slipper lying on the stairs.
I command that the owner of this slipper is found as soon as possible. Search the entire countryside.
The prince's servants traveled the entire country, knocking on every door and asking every young girl to try on the slipper. But the slipper did not fit anyone. When the prince's servants arrived at Cinderella's house, both the stepsisters tried very hard to put the slipper on.
Ow! Push harder!
Yes, my daughter's feet are just a little swollen today. Push harder! But the prince's servants could see that the slipper did not fit either of them. Cinderella opened the door to find out what was going on, and the captain of the servants saw her.
Come out, young lady. You must try on this slipper.
As soon as Cinderella put on the slipper, the men knew that it belonged to her, because the slipper fit her foot just perfectly.
Young lady, you must come with us at once. The prince has been searching for you and is waiting.
The prince's men took Cinderella to the palace. When the prince saw Cinderella, he immediately recognized her and was very happy to see her. He knelt on his knee and asked her to marry him.
Will you marry me, my princess?
Cinderella accepted the prince's proposal and was so very happy. And they lived happily ever after. But Cinderella often wondered, how strange that my slipper didn't lose its magic. I am always by your side.
Mother, of course. Thank you so much.
Once upon a time, there lived a very rich man. He had 3 daughters. 2 of them were really greedy and self-centered girls. But the 3rd one had a heart full of love and kindness. One day, their dad received the news that his ships had sunk due to the storm. Poor man had lost everything and was left with only his little house in the village. The 2 greedy sisters were of course not pleased with this situation. All day long, all they were doing was sitting around and complaining. All the housework was left to Beauty. After a while, their father heard that one of his lost ships had made it to the harbor. He started to prepare to go to the harbor right away, and before he left, he asked his daughters,
Girls, what would you like me to bring back with me?
A necklace, shoes, bracelet, shoes, necklace, a bracelet,
And what about you, Beauty? What would you like?
Just a rose is fine, Daddy. Their father arrived at the harbor after a long journey, but neither his stuff on the boat was there, nor was the ship usable.
Oh,
Sad and tired, he started his journey back home. It was almost dark when he reached the forest.
So cold.
The forest was dark and cold, and it was snowing. He rode his horse for hours and hours on the snow. And finally, he saw a castle with the lights on.
Hello? Hello?
He entered, hoping they might help
Hello?
him. It was a weird castle. The lights were on everywhere. The dinner table was full of food. And there was fire in the chimney.
Anybody home?
But there was no one to be seen. He called out
Can
for
anyone
someone,
hear
but no
me?
one answered. Finally, not being able to wait anymore, he first ate some food from the table, and then he slept in one of the beds. When he woke up in the morning, he found found some new clothes next to the bed.
Oh.
He went downstairs. And a nice breakfast was waiting for him on the table.
I can't believe I'm being helped like this. It must be a fairy that owns this castle. I wish I could thank her.
When he was leaving the castle, he noticed the rose garden.
Couldn't grant my other daughter's wishes, but at least I can get Beauty a rose, like she asked.
Just as he picked a rose, he and his surroundings shook with a loud roar. An evil lion-like beast appeared from behind the trees. The father almost fainted when he saw the beast.
I saved your life. I fed you. I gave you new clothes. And here you are, stealing
No.
my roses. Is this how you thank me?
The man went on his knees and
It was
begged
just
him.
a rose.
He wanted
I'm
to take
sorry.
one of the
I didn't
roses
know.
to his daughter.
What you did will not go unpunished.
Please forgive me.
I will forgive
I
you
wanted it for my daughter.
with only one condition. Talk to your daughters. If one of them agrees to live here with me, I will grant your life.
The man jumped on his horse and sadly went on the road to his home. When at home, the man told his daughters about the lost cargo, the broken boat, and the beast in the castle. But the two greedy sisters were more worried about missing their gifts than about their father. Daddy, if you allow me, I accept to go to the beast.
Oh, Beauty.
The two sisters did not want to go near the beast, so they immediately said that Beauty should be the one to go.
You wouldn't even be in this mess if it weren't for her asking for a stupid rose.
Sad and hopeless, her father took Beauty and left to the castle. When they arrived, everything was prepared for them, just like before. Food on the table and no one else around. Just as they sat down and started to eat, the beast came out. Beauty
the beast.
started to shake out of fear because the beast was as scary as her father had told her. Beast asked with a soft voice,
Did you come here of your own free will?
"Yes."
Then in the morning, your father will go away and never come back.
When she woke up in the morning, Beauty knew that her father was gone, and she found a nice breakfast waiting for her on the table. She wandered around in the garden for a while. She felt sad when she looked at the roses. Then she went around in the castle. One of the doors was full of roses. She wondered. She opened the door and peeked inside. The room was decorated just like she would have liked it, and it was full of books, flowers, and musical instruments. She thought that someone who can arrange a room like this would not hurt anybody. Then she took a book. On the book was written in gold letters, "My dear Queen, your wish is my command." I wish I could see my father now. As soon as Beauty said it, her father appeared in the mirror across the room. Beauty was so surprised. Seeing her father made her happy again. That night, at dinner, Beast appeared again.
Would you let me watch you, Beauty?
You own the place. Why would you ask me?
No, you own this castle now. If you want, I can leave immediately.
Beauty was very surprised with his answer.
I want to ask you something. Do you really think I'm ugly?
Beauty did not know what to say at first, but looked up at him and nodded as if to say yes.
Do you think anyone would ever marry me?
No. Beauty was shocked at the question and answered too harshly. Beast turned around sad and left Beauty alone. Beast was visiting Beauty every night at dinner, and he treated her very kind. As days passed, Beauty felt like she was getting used to Beast. I wish he wasn't that ugly. As the months passed, Beauty was no longer afraid of the Beast, and she even started to like him. But one day, she saw in the mirror that her father was ill. She raced next to the Beast and asked him to let her go home, because she wanted to take care of her sick father.
Of course you can go, but if you don't come back, I might die from sadness.
I will come back after a week, I promise.
Take this ring and bring it with you.
Beast gave Beauty a ring. When she would put this ring on her nightstand and fall asleep, she would wake back up in the castle. The next morning, she woke up in her own bed in her father's house. She ran to her father at once.
Oh, Beauty!
When her father saw her, he was so happy that he felt better. In the afternoon, Beauty's sisters, who recently had gotten married, came to visit their father. When they found Beauty at home, they were furious with envy and anger, and they decided to play a little trick on her.
Let's make her stay here one more week. Then the Beast will come and kill her.
The two sisters came next to Beauty, crying, and told her that they didn't want to be apart. Beauty promised to stay one more week. Not long after, Beauty realized that she missed Beast. One day, she saw a dream where Beast was lifeless on the ground in the garden's castle. She woke up in a sweat. What I'm doing is cruel and selfish. So she immediately took the ring off her finger, put it on the nightstand beside her, and she woke up in the Beast's castle in the morning. She waited for the Beast all day long, but he was nowhere to be seen. She waited for hours and hours, but Beast did not come. Suddenly, she remembered her dream and ran to the garden. Beast was lying down, lifeless on the ground, just like she saw him in her dream. Beauty ran next to him and hugged him. Beast's heart was still beating. He could barely open his eyes, and he spoke with great difficulty.
I thought you weren't coming back.
But I love you, and I want to marry you. At that instant, something magical happened. Suddenly, the castle became brighter and more beautiful. Beauty looked around, stunned, and then she turned her head back to the Beast. But where the ugly Beast was lying, now there was a young and handsome prince. When she saw him, Beauty started to cry. "Who are you? And where did the Beast go?"
Oh, do not be afraid.
Prince stood up and started to tell.
I am the Beast, an evil witch put a spell on me and turned me into that wretched form. If it were not for your love, that you would marry me, if it were not for your love, I would have been a beast forever.
When she heard this, Beauty was much
Thank you
happier.
so much.
With her good heart, she found true love. Beauty and the prince got married and lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, there lived a young couple in a land far, far away. They did not have any children, but they really wanted to have a baby girl. After a while, the wife became pregnant, expecting a baby. One day, she looked into an enchanted garden next door, and her thoughts became captured by the desire to eat the lettuce in the garden. And from then on, she could not think of anything else but that lettuce. "I'll die if I cannot eat that lettuce." The mother was so consumed by the idea of eating the lettuce that she lost her appetite for anything else. Slowly, she lost more and more weight, and the husband became very worried. He promised his wife that he would bring her the lettuce.
My darling, don't worry. I will get you some lettuce.
"But my love, it's very dangerous." It was dangerous because the garden was owned by an evil witch. It was surrounded by tall walls and a locked gate. It took all the father's strength to climb the wall to get into the garden. He picked a handful of lettuce and brought it to his wife. His wife ate the lettuce, and she felt a little bit better. But she was still hungry for more. The next day, her husband climbed the wall into the garden again to steal more lettuce. But this time, the witch caught him.
How dare you come into my garden and steal my lettuce? What were you thinking?
My wife is pregnant, and she has a craving only for your lettuce.
And why did you not ask my permission to take my lettuce?
We are all so afraid of you. I didn't think you would give us any. Will you forgive me?
Forgive you? You will be punished for this.
But if my wife can't eat the lettuce, she will get sick and our baby will die. Please.
I have grown this lettuce, and you have stolen it. So here's my deal. You take as much as you want of what I have grown, and when your wife is satisfied with my lettuce, I will take what she has grown. You crazy fool!
Out of fear, the man agreed and fled from the garden with the lettuce. A few months later, the baby was born, and the witch came and took the baby away. She named the baby Rapunzel because the type of lettuce the baby's mother had craved was named Rapunzel. They went far, far away, so the parents could not find her after they realized what a foolish deal they had made. The witch hid her in a tall tower in the woods and let Rapunzel's hair grow long. She told Rapunzel that she was her mother, but really she was a prisoner in the top of the tower because there was no staircase or door and only one small window at the very top. When the witch would come to visit, she would call to her from below.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel, let down your golden hair so that I can see you when I climb up there.
And Rapunzel would let her long braided golden hair fall down through the small window. The witch would climb Rapunzel's golden hair like a rope to get to the top of the tower. One day, a prince rode deep into the forest when he was hunting, and he heard a beautiful voice singing from the high tower.
Oh.
La,
What?
la, 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 la.
What a beautiful voice.
He thought, and rode to the tower to find out who it was. La, 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 la. He looked for a door or a staircase, but could not figure out how to enter the tower. All night and all day, he tried to figure out how to climb to the window, but couldn't figure out how to climb up. And when night came again, he heard the witch coming, and he hid and watched her.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel, let down your golden hair so that I can see you when I climb up there.
Rapunzel let her long braided golden hair, and with the help of Rapunzel's hair, the witch made it to the top of the tower.
I see how this is done.
So the next day, just after sunset, the prince went to the tower and tried it.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your golden hair so that I can see you when I climb up there.
Rapunzel was surprised to hear a different voice, but let her hair down anyway, because she had never met anyone else in her whole life. When the prince climbed up, she was shocked. You're not my mother. Why did you come here?
Oh, don't be afraid. I am a prince. I heard your beautiful singing and wanted to meet you. You are so beautiful.
Rapunzel liked the prince, and she asked him to come back again the next day. The prince came back many times, and they fell in love. But Rapunzel did not tell the witch, because she was afraid the witch would curse the prince. And one day, the prince asked Rapunzel,
"Will you marry me, Rapunzel?"
Rapunzel joyfully accepted the prince's proposal. But Rapunzel did not have any way to climb down from the tower to escape, until she thought of a plan to make a rope of her own. So the prince began to bring pieces of cloth every time he would visit.
Oh, this is a good sturdy material.
And she would tie them together to make a rope. But one day, Rapunzel was daydreaming and accidentally mentioned the prince to the witch.
Mother,
The prince climbs my hair faster than you do.
what prince? Who is this prince?
The witch realized that the prince might try to rescue her, and she was very angry with Rapunzel.
How could you lie to me about meeting someone? You should stay in this tower with me forever.
The witch was so upset that she cut off Rapunzel's hair so she could never help the prince climb up the tower again. Then she used a spell to send her to a desert far, far away.
Oh, my hair!
The witch stayed in the tower and made a plan to kill the prince. Then she heard his voice.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let your golden hair down. It is I, the prince, the one with the crown.
The witch let down the braided hair she had cut from Rapunzel. The prince climbed up, hoping to rescue Rapunzel from the tower. But when he got to the top and saw the witch holding Rapunzel's hair, he was shocked and afraid of what had happened to Rapunzel. The witch stepped toward him, and the prince stumbled back and fell down from the tower.
Okay, that's enough.
The prince landed in thick bushes. He survived, but the thorns had scratched his face and eyes, and he could no longer see. He wandered blindly for days through the forest, crying for Rapunzel. He ate plants and fruits he found in the forest until he left the forest and found himself lost in a desert. And in the wind was an unexpected sound. He heard a voice, a familiar voice singing sweetly, and recognized it.
Rapunzel's voice.
He followed the sounds of her voice and began yelling,
Rapunzel! Rapunzel!
Rapunzel eventually heard him and gasped,
Rapunzel!
"My prince!"
Rapunzel!
They ran to one another. Finally, they found each other. Rapunzel held her prince and wept tears of joy. The prince felt her tears fall on his face and touch his own eyes, and miraculously, his eyes opened and he could see again.
I can see! Rapunzel, it is you, my darling! You're alive! Thank you.
He brought her to his castle on his faithful horse, where people greeted them with joy. And they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, there was a kingdom full of happiness, ruled by a noble king and a kind queen. They spent many years working to make their kingdom safe and happy, and never had time to have children, but they very much wished to have a baby. And eventually, their patience was rewarded, and their wish came true. They were blessed with a baby girl. Finally, the king and queen had found great joy and happiness. Their daughter was as bright as the sun, so they named the little princess Sunshine. The king and the queen decided to have a big ball to celebrate their joy and birth of Sunshine. Everyone was invited, even the fairies living in the mystery forest. Everyone from all around the kingdom and the kings and queens from the neighboring kingdoms presented their gifts and best wishes to Sunshine. And finally, the fairies brought the most unique gifts. You see, fairies do not give presents in boxes or wrapping paper. Instead, with their wish wands, they give special blessings to the baby's heart.
May you always find beauty in everything. Little Princess Sunshine, may you never be sad and always find joy and happiness.
But just as the last fairy was going to present her gift, a cold wind blew open the front doors, and the entire ballroom was covered in a terrible green smoke. The smoke gathered into a pillar, and suddenly the Black Fairy appeared. It was the evil-hearted Black Fairy.
Who is this?
Demanded the king. He tried to be brave, but he was also afraid. So, what a bright and cheery party. Looks like the whole kingdom is here. Kings, queens, and the fairies. How insulting that I was not invited. The king was afraid and tried to apologize. Well, it's a good thing I came by with my special gift. The most beautiful princess will grow up surrounded with happiness, love, and admiration. But on her 16th birthday, just before sunset, she will poke herself with a needle, and she'll be gone forever.
Seize that monster!
Yelled out the king, but the powerful fairy threw back the guards and disappeared into the evil green smoke. Fortunately, there was still one last fairy who had yet to give her blessing. She was not as powerful as the Black Fairy, but she tried to think of something that would counteract the Black Fairy's cruel
Princess
curse.
Sunshine, when the curse unfolds, you will not die. but instead fall into a deep sleep to awaken someday with a kiss of true love.
The king also did his best to stop the curse and ordered every needle in the kingdom to be destroyed. So his men collected all the sewing machines and spinning wheels and burned them in the courtyard of the castle. Seasons passed and years passed, and Princess Sunshine grew more every day. The king also ordered the 3 fairies to guard and watch over Princess Sunshine as she grew up. But she was so quick, and they had a hard time keeping up with her. And as the years passed, Princess Sunshine grew into a beautiful young lady. The whole kingdom loved Princess Sunshine, but they also feared that the curse would come true on her 16th birthday. And finally, the 16th birthday of Princess Sunshine arrived. To keep her safe, the king and queen locked the door to Princess Sunshine's room and commanded a guard to keep watch through the night. Princess Sunshine did not understand what was going on and was worried. Suddenly, a magic door appeared in the wall. Sunshine was mesmerized by this door she had never seen before, and she heard a voice calling her, "Sunshine, Sunshine." Sunshine felt like she was in a dream and walked into the room. Inside, a woman was using a spinning wheel with a sharp needle. Princess Sunshine had never seen a spinning wheel before and was curious. As the sun set, she reached out and touched the needle, and the Black Fairy's curse came true. With only a touch of the needle, Sunshine fell down as though she were dead. But because of the good fairy's blessing, she was really only asleep. And from then forward, the kingdom was no longer happy. Sadness fell upon the castle. The 3 fairies dressed her up with her most beautiful gown and laid her on a bed of flowers. The entire kingdom was so sad that the king and queen ordered the fairies to put everyone to sleep until Princess Sunshine awoke. As the sun set, so did their joy, and throughout the entire castle, everyone fell into a magical sleep. And throughout the other kingdoms, the legend of Sleeping Beauty was told for the next 100 years. Vines and thorns grew up and around the castle until it was nearly forgotten. But one day, a handsome prince was exploring and saw the castle covered with thorned bushes and ivy. His men told him of the legend of Sleeping Beauty, so the prince decided to find out the truth.
If she's real,
the prince thought,
then she may still need rescued.
The thorny vines were very thick and impossible to climb through, so he cut his way through with his sword. He finally came to the main gate and found 2 sleeping guards. They didn't look like they were 100 years old, because they were in a magical sleep. The prince was shocked and explored the castle, finding people asleep everywhere. Even the king and queen were asleep in their chairs. And in the next room, he found Sleeping Beauty, surrounded by beautiful flowers. The prince knelt by the bed and spoke to her.
So you are the legend. I have come to break the curse.
The prince stared at her a moment and then kissed her on her forehead. Princess Sunshine opened her eyes slowly and saw the handsome prince. And as she woke up, everyone in the castle also woke up from their 100 years of sleep. She was indeed their sunshine. The king and queen rushed to Sunshine's room to see if the curse had been broken. They were full of joy and happiness. The prince asked Princess Sunshine to marry him. The princess smiled and accepted his proposal, and the king gave his blessing to the prince, who saved his daughter and his kingdom. They had the most beautiful ceremony anyone had ever seen. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful castle in a land far away. The queen only had one wish: to have a beautiful baby girl. She often thought of a baby daughter, and one cold winter day, as she sat beside the window, she accidentally pricked her finger with her sewing needle. She immediately wiped the blood off with a piece of cotton and felt inspired to make a wish. I wish to have a baby girl whose skin is as white as snow, whose eyes are brighter than the purest jewel, and whose heart is full of joy and happiness. And one day, the wish of the good-hearted queen came true. She had a beautiful baby girl. They named this beautiful girl Snow White. They loved each other very much. But when Snow White was still a young girl, her mother, the queen, passed away. The king missed his wife very much, so much that he became tired and weak and then ill. Not wanting to leave Snow White without a parent, he married again. The new queen was beautiful, but she had an evil heart. She was an arrogant and jealous woman. Every day, the queen would look into her magic mirror and ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the magic mirror would answer back,
"No one, Your Highness. You are the most beautiful person in the land."
The queen did many evil things in secret, which made a lot of trouble throughout the kingdom. The kingdom changed so much that it nearly started a war. So to bring peace to the land, the king left the castle. This was exactly what the evil queen had planned. She put a spell on the castle so he could never find it again. The years passed. Snow White grew up to be a beautiful young princess with a very kind heart. A young prince traveled through the kingdom, and while kneeling to drink some water from a stream, he saw an image of Snow White in the water. He thought it was a reflection and looked around, but did not see anything except the birds that flew around him. One day, the queen admired her beauty in the magic mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The mirror answered,
Well, sorry, but not you, my dear queen. Snow White is now the most beautiful person in the land.
The queen was furious when she heard the magic mirror's answer. She immediately called in her best hunter and gave him a horrible order.
Take Snow White into the woods and bring back her heart.
She had her soldiers bring Snow White to the queen.
Snow White, come with us.
Hello, Snow White. You've been cooped up in the castle far too long. Go get some fresh air in the woods. Don't worry, my most trusted hunter will keep you safe.
The hunter obeyed his queen's order and took Snow White deep into the woods. He approached Snow White to kill her and take her heart. But when he saw that Snow White had a kind, good heart, he could not do her any harm.
Listen, Snow White, you can't ever go back to the castle again. Don't ever go back.
And at sunset, he left her in the woods and headed back to the castle. Snow White was very afraid in the dark woods, all alone. She sat under a tree and started crying until at last she fell asleep. In the morning, Snow White woke up with birds chirping. These animals knew who she was and loved their princess. They led her out of the dark woods. Her friends brought her to their home, which was just as cute and tiny as them.
Hello?
No one seemed to be home, so Snow White opened the door. Everything inside the house was very small and very messy. Snow White did not know whose house it was, but she had nowhere to go, so she decided to tidy up until the owner returned.
La 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 la.
After she cleaned up the house and made it nice and spotless, Snow White used the tiny kitchen and tiny spoons to make a meal. Snow White was exhausted from her scary night in the woods. She found beds, but they were all so tiny that she wouldn't fit. So she pushed some together and quickly fell asleep. In the evening, the Seven Dwarves, who were the lovely owners of this beautiful tiny home, had arrived from working in the mine. They were really surprised. The house was clean, and the aroma of delicious soup filled the entire house. Clumsy wanted to get a bowl of soup right away, but because of his clumsiness, he spilled it on the floor.
There's something fishy about all this. Who did all this work? If I can get some sleep, I'm sure I can find all the answers,
said Lazy, yawning. The Seven Dwarves quietly all went upstairs, ready to rest. But when they entered the bedroom, they couldn't believe their eyes. Right there, laying across their tiny beds, was the most beautiful girl they had ever seen. Awakened by their voices, Snow White jumped up from her sleep, frightened, and she saw the 14 eyes of the Seven Dwarves staring at her.
My name is Snow White. I'm so sorry for intruding on your home. I meant no harm.
Well, we're sure of that. Otherwise, why would you clean up and cook for us? We are the Seven Dwarves,
answered Ace, and introduced them.
We are the Seven Dwarves. This is Jolly, Angry, Clumsy, Slumpy, Red, and me, Ace, and there he is, Lazy.
Snow White was so happy that she now had little friends. Snow White told them all about what had happened. The Seven Dwarves were very sad to hear what had happened. They asked her to stay with them. Snow White agreed to stay and offered to keep their home tidy and help make food for the hard-working dwarves. But their happiness wasn't going to last long. One day, the Queen asked the same question to her magic mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The mirror's answer was the same.
I'm sorry, but not you, my dear Queen. Snow White is the fairest of them all.
But the Queen thought that she was already dead. She did not know that the hunter had brought her a box with a heart of a deer. The Queen decided to finish the job herself, and for good this time. One morning, Snow White joyfully sent the dwarves to work with a kiss on each cheek. Ace repeated his warnings as always.
Now don't forget our rule. If any stranger comes a-knocking on the door while we're away, do not answer it.
All right, Ace, but you guys don't be late, okay?
While Snow White was preparing dinner, there was a knock on the door. She did not expect the dwarves to come back so soon. "Who is it? Ace, is it you guys?" Snow White could see an old woman outside.
I mean no harm, my little girl. Open up, please.
Snow White thought the poor old woman was harmless, and so she opened the door.
Oh, my dear, beautiful girl, I am a poor old woman passing by. If you could give me a bowl of soup, I would be forever grateful. Please.
Snow White allowed the old lady to come in and offered her a bowl of hot soup.
Thank you, my dear. I have no money, but I have the most delicious and brightest red apple for you. Even one bite will taste like heaven.
Snow White was curious and took a bite from the apple. And as soon as she did, she fainted and fell down on the floor. The old lady was none other than the disguised evil queen, and the apple was full of poison. Even one bite was enough to put Snow White to a sleep from which she could never be able to wake up. When the 7 dwarves returned home, they found Snow White lying on the floor.
The apple she ate must be poisonous. This must be the queen's doing.
Snow White was so beautiful, even while asleep. So the dwarves put her in a glass box made of precious gems, and they put her on a hilltop where all her friends in the woods could see. One day, the prince came to the woods where Snow White was sleeping. Snow White's friends showed him the way and brought him to the glass box where she was sleeping. The prince could not believe his eyes.
It's her.
The beautiful princess he once saw as a magical reflection on the river was lying in front of him. He lifted up the cover of the box and kissed Snow White. Right at that moment, Snow White's and the prince's dreams came true. Their love overcame the curse. And in the same moment, the curse over the castle was broken, and the king sought out the magic mirror and broke it into pieces. The king banished the queen from the kingdom forever. Snow White finally returned to her castle and found her father. Snow White and the prince had a magical wedding. The king, Snow White, the prince, and the 7 dwarves all lived happily ever after, deep in the ocean, far deeper than anyone had explored, was an enormous ocean kingdom. Jellyfish and giant whales, cheerful dolphins, fish with all the colors of the rainbow, and amidst all that color, at the bottom of the ocean, was the deep sea kingdom. It was so deep in the ocean that it was out of sight of everyone else in the world. In the deep sea kingdom, the sea people lived in peace with all the other deep sea creatures. The king of the seas lived in the deep sea castle with his mother and 6 daughters. The king of the seas loved his daughters very much. He had seen human men do wicked things, and the nearby kingdoms were not friendly to his kingdom, so he made strict rules to protect his daughters from being harmed.
The humans living above the sea cannot be trusted.
Daddy, why don't they like us?
Asked the Little Mermaid.
Because I said so. They hunt our fish friends and have no respect for our underwater kingdom.
The king's youngest daughter, the Little Mermaid, was very curious about the life on the land, especially humans. Her sisters told stories about the humans and what they had seen beyond the sea gate, and that made her even more curious. The Little Mermaid's grandmother warned her about the humans all the time and reminded her that she could only go out of the sea gate when she earned her crown and grew as old as her sisters. The Little Mermaid often watched her sister swim out the sea gate and explore the ocean, so she began to make a secret plan to go out the sea gate. She knew the whale named Himram could leave the deep sea kingdom whenever he wanted, so she and her dolphin friend went to see him. She told her plan to Himram. At first, the great whale did not think it was a good idea, but the Little Mermaid promised she would not get hurt and pestered him so much that he agreed to sneak her out of the gate. The big blue whale and the dolphin swam to the gate, and the guards opened the door for them. When they were out of sight, Himram the whale opened his giant mouth, and the Little Mermaid swam out. The Little Mermaid swam above the deep sea kingdom and was excited to see new things. When she reached the top of the ocean, she felt the waves and the ocean breeze and saw the blue skies for the very first time.
Marvelous!
Then, in the distance, the Little Mermaid heard some music. She looked around and saw the ship beyond the waves. It was her first time seeing a ship.
This is a ship, right? Let's go.
Her friend the dolphin warned her not to go, but she was already out of sight. The Little Mermaid swam quickly towards the ship. The ship belonged to the king. The king was having a birthday party for his son, Prince Mark. He wanted his son to get married, so he had invited all the eligible princesses from other kingdoms onto the boat.
He's a prince,
warned the dolphin. The Little Mermaid could see the prince as he walked on the deck of the ship and took out a flute. She loved the sound of it and began to sing along with the melody. The prince heard her lovely voice and started to look around. Warned the dolphin. The Little Mermaid jumped back into the water and hid beneath the waves. What the Little Mermaid did not know was that she was being watched. Deep in the sea was an evil sea witch watching for someone to break the rules. She saw the Little Mermaid through her crystal ball.
Yes, the day has finally come. The daughter of the King of the Seas has sneaked out to find a human. Let the waves and winds and storms rise with thunder and lightning all over.
The sea witch's evil power instantly hit the boat with a terrible storm. The king's ship started to drift toward the rocks. The Little Mermaid was very worried when she saw the drifting ship in the storm.
This storm has broken the ship. It's going to sink. We have to help them.
The Little Mermaid dove in the water right after the ship. Swimming through the shipwreck, she found the flute that the prince was playing. Then she saw the prince, who was sinking deeper and deeper. She immediately pulled him out of the water and brought him to shore.
Wake up, please!
The prince slowly regained his consciousness and opened his eyes.
He's alive!
Hearing dogs barking from a distance, she suddenly realized that she wasn't in the water at all and jumped back into the water, leaving the prince on the shore. The king had already been rescued and sent his servants out to search for his son.
A girl saved me from drowning. I don't know where she came from, but her voice was so beautiful. Did anyone else make it?
The Little Mermaid swam back to the deep sea kingdom and sneaked back into the castle. She still had the prince's flute in her hand, and she hoped he was okay. Just then, her father, the King of the Seas, came in and saw the flute in the Little Mermaid's hand. He had heard what his daughter had done and knew that the flute must belong to a human.
We have rules in order to keep the kingdom safe. everyone must obey. Is it true that you have saved a human from drowning?
I had to. If I hadn't, he would have drowned,
answered back the Little Mermaid.
Enough! Humans cannot be trusted. You are never to speak to a human again, and you must never leave the deep-sea kingdom.
The king was very upset and left the room. But the Little Mermaid still wanted to go see the prince again on dry land. So she made a terrible decision. She went to Naga, the sea witch, and asked her to use her magic to help her see the prince again. Naga agreed to help, but in return, she wanted something back. Something very valuable.
I will prepare a mixture that will turn you into a human. But, in return, you will give me your beautiful voice.
My voice? But how would that work?
The Little Mermaid was intent on seeing the prince again, so she agreed to the sea witch's terms.
Oh, and one more thing. At the end of the third day, with the fourth sunrise, the prince must fall in love with you. Otherwise, you'll return to being a mermaid and forget the prince forever.
The Little Mermaid was foolish and did not think of the consequences, so she drank the potion. The Little Mermaid started to swim to the surface, but as she swam, her tail started to disappear and magically change into 2 legs. She couldn't swim well with legs, but her friend the dolphin helped her to shore. The prince, at his castle, was looking out to sea, and then he noticed the Little Mermaid, who looked like a beautiful red-headed girl stumbling in the sand. He caught her as she was falling over.
You! Have we met before?
The Little Mermaid could not talk, but she handed the flute to the prince.
We have.
The prince was surprised to see his flute and played his favorite tune. The Little Mermaid nodded her head to tell him that she recognizes the tune from before. The prince was sure that she was the girl who had saved him, but he couldn't understand why she wasn't speaking. The girl, he remembered, could swim quite well and had a beautiful voice.
I saw you when I was playing this tune on the deck. I heard your voice, and then you saved me from drowning.
The Little Mermaid tried to talk, but she did not have a voice. Because she could not speak, the prince began to doubt that this was the girl who had saved him. But he felt sorry for her and decided to help. The prince took the Little Mermaid to his castle, where she overheard the king speaking to him.
Enough about mermaids. It is time for you to choose a bride. You will marry one of the princesses within a month. I have ordered preparations for the wedding to begin.
The Little Mermaid could only watch, but because she could not speak, there was nothing she could do to convince the prince to fall in love with her. She remembered the witch's words.
Don't forget, at the end of the third day with the fourth sunrise, the prince must fall in love with you. Otherwise, you will return to being a mermaid and forget the prince forever.
The days went by so quickly. On the last day, the king and the queen chose a princess from the neighboring kingdom and decided to have the wedding at sea on their new ship. The Little Mermaid could not explain to the prince that indeed she was the mermaid he was looking for. He didn't want to marry the princess from the other kingdom, but he had not been able to find the woman who had saved him from drowning. The Little Mermaid was weeping silently. She had no voice to call for help and could not swim back to her family. She missed them. And when she looked out at the ocean waves that used to be her home, she saw familiar faces in the water. Her mermaid sisters had come to help her.
My dear grandchild, we are here to undo the sea witch's curse. You were very foolish to make a deal with her.
And finally, the king of the seas came out of the water. His heart was sad that she had run away, but glad that he had found her. He had been watching the prince the last few days and told his daughter,
My dear daughter, I misjudged the prince at first because of other wicked men, but now I see that he loves you.
The grandmother had the seashell which held the little mermaid's voice. They had saved it from the sea witch. The king of the seas used his trident to release her voice and restore it to her.
My voice! Thank you, Grandmother. Thank you, Daddy. I love you all so very much.
With the whale's help, they swam to the prince's ship as fast as they could. As the prince and the princess were approaching the altar to say their vows, the prince suddenly stopped. He could hear the little mermaid's beautiful voice. When he saw the little mermaid coming towards him on a whale, without any hesitation, he jumped in the sea. The kings of both kingdoms made peace and became friends. The prince got to meet the king of the sea and his mother and all the little mermaid's sisters.
I knew it was you.
Eventually, the little mermaid fell in love and married the prince. And they continued the peace, love, and friendship of both of their kingdoms, on both land and in the sea. The end.